Hello, everyone. I have a special treat for us today. I found her on LinkedIn and I took her quiz. And we're going to get into that later. And I was like, yes, she has knowledge that I feel everybody should have, right? Because when we're sitting in that chair, in that interview chair, and we're in front of these strangers that are like judging us, we want to feel, we feel like we have to be above who we are in that space. And we don't because they looked at your qualifications on a resume, so clearly you have the experience, but I want you to be confident in that experience when you're sitting in that chair. So enough about that. I would like to introduce you all to Rhonda Khan. She is a speaker coach, communication strategist, and founder of the Simply Speech Solutions, where she helps professionals communicate with confidence and authenticity. Through her five speaker archetypes, which we're going to get in today, framework, Rhonda empowers people to understand their unique speaking style and use it to show up powerfully in any setting. Hey, Rhonda.
Hey, Renita. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks. um, so can you share a little bit about your journey into coaching? Like what inspired you to get into, this field?
It's funny. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I never thought I'd be a coach. I thought I didn't have the range. I was a speech language pathologist. That's what I went to school for. I have a master's in that, bachelor's and master's in that. And I worked at schools for many years with children, elementary school, actually from early childhood to elementary, upper elementary. I also did early intervention, which is the little bitty babies where I come to the home with a big bag of toys. And at the same time, I was an actor. And so with my first job as speech pathologist, your first year is called your clinical fellowship year where you're still learning. My first job, I was doing a play at the same time. And so, because I had always done acting extracurricularly, and now I felt like it was time to be professional. So I've always worn multi hats. And for several decades, those different careers took turns. And maybe around a decade ago, around like 2014, 2015, I got a job in Manhattan where I was working, where it was like corporate speech therapy, where I got to help people who needed to improve their voice. Maybe they wanted to reduce their accent a bit to be better understood. I didn't have the best boss, but I had a really great experience of understanding that I really loved helping people feel better about how they communicate. And I'm like, this is something I can do. And so the crossroads really were in 2016. I was pregnant with my first son. I have two boys, and I was pregnant with him, and I had a complication that had me on bed rest. And we weren't as Zoom savvy, or we were still using Skype mostly in 2016 and those kinds of things. And so I lost a lot of my work because I was doing plays. I had a one-woman show. I had a lot of different things going on. I've always been that person, and as the environment I was in, and everything just had to screech to a halt so I can get this baby to term. And so, of course, I did, thankfully. And because New York rent is very expensive, my husband and I were like, are you going to go back to multiple little jobs and try to make it meet while we're just paying for childcare for your work? Or, maybe we should stay home and figure it out. So I stayed with him for the first 6 months. And during that time, I was sitting home and I was thinking, what would I do? What could I do if I combined the skill set of a clinician with the experience of an actor and my natural inclination to want to help people like be better into a position? And so I just crafted something on my own, just researching how to start a business. Started with one client, and just helping them with a pitch, and it ended up into a big business where I work with thought leaders, corporate leaders. I work with companies to help train their teams. I do keynoting for this kind of work. But ultimately, the basis is we all have a unique style of communicating. We all have something special. There's no one way to communicate. How can you tap into that to be better at communicating, which makes you better at everything else you do? And that's essentially it.
I love that. I love that. And I love it because communication is everywhere. It's not just
Every
professional,
time.
right? You know, um, they say how to keep a marriage going, communication, how to keep this going, communication. Like communication is the key to a lot of things, which leads to understanding, right? Because I can sit and talk to you for hours, but if you leave that conversation, you understand what I'm saying or what I'm trying to convey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you left no impact in a sense, So
Mhm.
I love that you were an actress too. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Which is also about, I guess in a way it's like you're giving people their voice, but you also create voices as well, in an acting industry.
Yeah, you learn a lot about human behavior. You become a student of human behavior as an actor when you're really doing it, like for real, for real. And then you also just learn about how to impact somebody else through words, because that's basically what you're doing, whether it's stage or screen or whatever else. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, we're going to get into the five speaker archetypes because that is what led me to you and to this
Mhm.
interview. You had a live, I think you hosted a live maybe a couple of weeks ago. And it was,
Mhm.
and while I'm listening to the live, I saw this link and I'm like, what is this? And so I take this test and I'm like, she gets me. So, so I want you to share that with us. Like, what are the five speaker archetypes? And if you could, briefly explain like what the five are, and
Mhm.
how that can help a person become more confident when communicating.
Yeah. So the five speaker archetypes is a model that I devised that gives us a toolkit to figure out where we land as far as communicators. They're not meant to box you in at all. Like there can be hybrids or other things, but if you can figure out your unique archetype, then you can learn how to leverage it to your advantage. You can also know the challenges that your archetype has, and so how you stretch and grow. And so the five archetypes, and I love electricity, and also I love a quiz. I don't know if you all love a quiz or love an assessment. I know these high achieving people like, tell me what I am. But the five archetypes are spark, connector, engineer, current, and reflector. And I can break all of those down. See, notice they're all about electricity. I'm a little bit obsessed with that. So a spark is the person that has that big, bold voice that will say the thing, say the quiet part out loud, that will say the thing. They're usually bursting with ideas. They're very clear and direct when they speak, but also it's in a spontaneous kind of way when they talk. They may be the person that's great at kicking off the meeting or starting the hard conversation, or will say the things that maybe people are afraid to say. They're usually really fascinating to watch. They're highly energetic, they're magnetic. So I'm sure some of us know sparks in our life, or maybe a spark. The connector is a person who leads with empathy, and so they could be emotional, more led, or more sensitive to people's energy, but in a very positive way of they can read the room well, and they can sense what's going on, and they can see the things that people who don't necessarily have as high of an emotional intelligence do. And so they're going to lead with the deeper questions and the deeper connected tissue about what is going on. So I'm doing this because often I see connectors like touching their body, or like, I just feel that they might have that deep emotional story, or really, really care. You usually feel safe with the connector. You feel like you can trust them. Then you have the engineer. And the engineer, as you may imagine, is very structured and methodical. They love logic. They love step by step by step. They think out scenarios really well. Engineers are really good at explaining things. They're great at breaking down the complex and making them simple. I always say, like, engineers can be some of the best professors, especially if it's something that's hard for you. Like, math was always hard for me. Anything math, like, I love science till they put math in it, i.e. chemistry. But like, they would be the person that you would want to learn from. And they have an exciting attachment to detail and specificity and focus. And so they thrive in order, and they thrive in that. Then you have the current, and a current is the person that's going to inspire movement. And I often, just like I said, this was the connector. Usually there's like a soft, not even a softness, but a intentionality about presence. Same thing with current. Like, a current is in the room, you're ready to move to action. Like, you're inspired by them. You kind of feel their energy before they're in the room. Currents also, like sparks, thrive in the spontaneity. And so of all the archetypes, currents are probably the best in spontaneity, even though you still need structure. And I'll talk about that, because it's kind of like we're connected. I'm a current also, so I can speak to it. We're connected to this like thread of energy, and like the ideas come through. And when we speak, it's like, oh, I just thought about that right now. And and they're usually the you laugh like usually the people who are really good at like making things happen, like making it happen, making those shifts, getting the movement started, great with ideas, and then often very creative. And then you also have finally the reflectors, and the reflectors are really really deep thinkers, and they may not be the first to speak up. They may, not because they're afraid, but because they're still processing. It takes them a while to process, but they're extremely wise. And I think that I often think about reflectors. I work with a lot of everybody, but the reflectors I know often really appreciate hearing this description, because they're like, you see me, you get it, because they're usually one that's going to solve the problem, but we have to give them time and space to do so because it takes them a minute to process. But they're connecting the dots in such a deep way that when they do get a chance to speak amongst all the currents and all the everybody, you're just like, oh yeah, that's it. Like they serve as the mirror to really hold up and bring all the pieces together. And so again, those are our 5 speaker archetypes.
Love that, love that. And how can first of all, I'm gonna everyone that's watching or listening, I'm gonna make sure I put a link to that quiz so you can know
Please.
your archetype. But also, how can those archetypes be incorporated when interviewing?
Yeah, so I think archetypes need to be known, just period, just so you know how you approach connection and how
Right.
you are seen. I think with interviewing, and you brought this up in the beginning, a lot of people feel like there needs to be a formula, there needs to be a way that you should present yourself and show up, and there are unique pieces about us that make people interested, but sometimes we dilute those because we feel like in this box of setting. And what I think an archetype will do is it'll guide how, like knowing your archetype will guide how you might answer your questions, how you might think about it, what parts of you are important to show, to align with that interview question or that space, how you prepare yourself. So I'll give you an example. An engineer would probably like to know so many details ahead of time. An engineer is going to want to know the details because they are planners. They are planners. They like to plan. And so they might have pre-questions beforehand. They will prepare all their questions. They will practice probably. They will really be very clear and direct. Whereas a current, for instance, will have will probably be more story led, and I think everybody should be able to give examples. I think that's a good interview technique, period, just to give stories and examples, but they're probably more driven by that. Same with for instance, a spark might say the thing in an interview that nobody else was saying, but the right company will be like, I'm into it, I'm here for it, let's get more. And so like knowing that's how you come, you can prepare to kind of understand, based on this position, what parts of my archetype do I need to bring forward to let them know that I'm aligned with this role, right? Right.
Mhm.
And what and if you know the archetypes, period, then you can kind of assess. And it's going to be hard because sometimes interviewers kind of have a kind of I don't want to say deadpan, but like sometimes they have a face.
Yeah.
But being curious about like what are the archetypes in the room, they need, how do you need to flex yours in that space? Like currents, do we need all those stories, or do we really need to get some clear facts? Like what is that question? How would you prepare the question based on what your strengths are? So that's what I would say would be the most helpful, instead of trying to imitate and trying to get the right questions and the right answers, because ideally the interviewer wants to know who you are. Like they
Right.
read your resume. By the time you got to that level, and you can speak more to it because of the work you do, Renita, by the time that you've gotten to that level, they know all the stats. They want to really know how you will show up in these situations. And they're looking for you to be you in these situations. You really have to be grounded and own what makes you you. And that's what the archetypes can help with.
I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I also love the fact of knowing your audience, discerning the room. If you are long-winded and you see that you have you're in a room with people that seem, to the
Mm-hmm.
point, you might want to, truncate yourself just a little bit. I'm a current, so I am very like that. That's why I love taking the quiz because now I have notes going forward because I veer off. I veer
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
and it'll be interesting points, but it's not the point. Like it's not the point that I'm
Mhm.
trying to make. And so I love that if I my boss is opposite of me. He's a bullet point person is what I call him. You
Mhm.
know, and so I try to be more succinct in my responses because I'm a loser.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so I love the fact of saying not only, you know, discerning yourself, but also discerning the room to see how you can, you know, still be yourself, but keep the attention of the interviewer.
100%.
Yeah, I
And I
love
want
that.
to warn the audience because this is very much, this is not saying that your style is not helpful because there may be, it may just be you adjusting what part, like, because currents
Mm.
have such power. Like, you can label it long-winded, or you can label it like, this story can transform your life. If you come with me, I got a point. Just come
I
with me,
love
just
it.
come on with me, you know. So I want to affirm that there's no bad archetype or no good, but like you're saying, like, currents need structure. Let me make notes. Like, those are the ways that you can help to flex it. So when your current really needs to show up, you can let her shine.
I love, and I love the what is it? I'm gonna say soliloquy just because I can't think of another
I love
word.
it.
Look, I'm going somewhere with this. Just give me a second. And I've
That's
learned,
good.
and to be honest, those are things that I say like, give me a second. I'm gonna reach my point.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and when I get there, you understand why I'm bringing you to A so we could get to K. Like, you
Uh-huh.
know,
Mhm.
and so you're kind of like letting them know beforehand. Take a seat, get some popcorn. It's gonna be a minute, like.
Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Just wait.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
just wait
Mhm.
for it. So some hiring process involve the 3 to 4 rounds of interviews. How can someone stay authentic and consistent without sounding like rehearsed?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways. So the other framework I have, which we're not necessarily focused on today, is about speaking with intention,
Mm,
and it encompasses a lot what you're talking about knowing your audience. And so every audience, I think, on each level is a different audience usually, because you might meet with the initial hiring manager, then you might meet with this level, then you might have the team interview, and then you know there's so many different levels. And so I think first being really intentional about who is the audience in this interview and what do they need from me in this moment, because there is, it's a different conversation. And I think as you get closer and higher up the levels, you can't be as prepared, like all of that stuff. Like they're asking more complex things, and they're asking more uh, things that you can't always prepare for, but things that you can prepare for them, but you can't script them. You definitely can't script them because they're often situational or different circumstantial things. And so I think once you know your audience, and once you know, okay, what do I want them to do or feel? Like, what do I want them to know about me? What do I need to walk away with this? And then I think, again, of course, doing your archetype work of, okay, keep in mind where I really shine, you know, and also where I really need to make sure that I can. And so perhaps for the interviews, when you're being asked more open-ended questions, if you are a current, for instance, that's a great opportunity for you to really like deliver and paint the picture. If you are in that interview where you really, they really want like some deep thoughtfulness of understanding something, or just really knowing an advanced kind of question that would like really integrate multiple pieces, that's where a reflector would really shine, because a reflector has probably really thought about it, and they're going to be extremely intentional with every single word. And so
mm.
that's really the piece of getting through, being super intentional, knowing which audience is at every level, knowing what they need at every level, and then what parts of you do you need to activate in each level.
I don't have anything behind that. Perfect.
Okay.
I was like, do I have a follow up? No, that was perfect. So this is just a little tip, you know, for you to provide the audience. Like, what's one small action or mindset shift professionals can practice before an interview to feel more grounded and present? And I think like you touched upon that earlier,
Mhm.
as far as, you know, but is there anything you can add to that basically or
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have to do your pre-work, whatever that is for you. So identifying your audience, knowing questions, kind of preparing. But another thing to help you be grounded, especially if there's only a little bit of time, get into your body. And this is dealing with, not the words and the practical aspects of what's going to happen, but when you have nerves per se, and when you feel like you're worried, your body is telling you something. It's a physiological reaction that is natural. Even if we're super prepared and super confident, we all have levels of that, especially if it means something to you. And so what I recommend is square breathing. I don't know if you've heard of square breathing or box breathing. There's so many different breathing techniques. There's breath work, there's this or that. Square breathing is super simple. You inhale for 4 seconds, you hold, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold. And you repeat that. But that helps calm you, that helps ground you. And you can kind of focus on, okay, why am I here? What do I need to do? And affirm yourself. But before you do that body work, you could be like, you could be really, really, really overwhelmed by the moment. And because I have many clients who, whether it's an interview prep, whether it's like a job interview or a media interview, they'll say they'll say things like, yeah, at first I was a little shaky, but I got my rhythm, and that's normal. But there's a way to just really ground yourself so you can start the strongest as you can, and it's really just getting calm and getting in that breath.
I love that. In interviews when I was younger, and probably still now, because believe it or not, public speaking is still not my thing. But a
As
bottle of
we're on your
water.
show.
Huh, right. But I've practiced. That's why that's where the encouragement comes in. Is practice. It gets you more comfortable. The more you do it, the less you're fearful of it.
Yes.
So I've noticed when I'm in those situations where um I'm nervous, I lean on my water bottle because that
Mm-hmm.
gives me a minute to breathe.
Mm.
You're not expecting me to talk while I'm
Mm.
sipping. And so
Mm.
that gives me a minute to just ground for a minute and then answer the question. And that like you said, you can find something that worked for you, but that's like aligned with what you're saying. Like I'm taking a deep breath and I'm thinking they think I'm just drinking water, but I'm like, okay, how can I answer this? How
That's
can I
good.
relay this? So that's great. I love that square breathe. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so I normally have a signature question in my lap. I have another platform, Be Your Own Kind, and I thought to just shake it up a little bit, and we're gonna do a fun wheel of questions. So if you want to, if you had time to do like one or two,
Of course. Let's go.
okay, I'm excited about this. And don't let me make it pink and purple, y'all. I don't know what I'm gonna do. All right, so here's a question.
Well, this is fun.
It's the wheel for me, you know.
I love a game. I love a game.
All right, what's one skill you're still working to improve in yourself?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. I think that I would really like to be better about managing time and my capacity. I
Um,
am really good at working under pressure, but I know it doesn't serve my system long term. And so I'm really trying to find a way to, and not just time management, but really, really plan for how I can work more efficiently, but also in a way that's kinder to me, that I understand
um,
my capacity and I'm like, I'm not burning the candle and running on adrenaline, and I can just have more ease. Yeah.
love that. Love that. Sorry, you guys. I thought that this was gonna lower the wheel and make us bigger, but then it just disappeared. Rhonda.
That's okay. That's
I
okay.
love that because I mean we want to do all the things we really do, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're only one person, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the last question is, ooh, all right. What's the funniest speaking slip up you've ever had on stage or in a meeting?
Ooh, that's good. Funniest slip up I've ever had on stage or in a meeting. Let me think about it. I'm always saying wild stuff. I'm a spark current hybrid. So I was like, what did I say? Let me think about it. Funniest slip up. Whew, let me think. I don't know what I've ever said that was a slip up that I just haven't covered, but I know a performance slip up that I remembered that I really owned. If I could tell that story, it wasn't a word, but it was like a wardrobe malfunction. Can I
Oh
share that
no.
story?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so about 2007, I'm performing in one of my favorite plays. It's called Stoops. If you're from Chicago or from anywhere south, it's the ETA Theater that I used to perform there, and it was one of my favorite shows. And it was a show where we came. It was based on three girls that started from like teenage girl, well, like preteen girls, all the way to mid 30s, and went from like the 50s through the 80s. And so in our 70s scene, I had this beautiful outfit. Like you couldn't, it was giving Diana Ross. It was giving, I had this beautiful Afro wig that I had. And I would come and do this big entrance and I would get into an argument with my friends and we would do it every, every show. We did like 5 shows a week. This one show was a Sunday. It was it was a Sunday matinee, which is always our turn up crowd. And because they come like right after church or whatever, and they ready, and they were loving the show. And then I was arguing with my castmate on stage, like blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden they go ah, because my actual wig comes off just like a tap that you like, and it's just hanging here, and they are just cracking. They are losing it. And so I snatched the wig, but instead of like melting down, I melted down later. But instead of melting down on stage, because the show must go on, I snatched the wig off and I started gesturing with it. I was like, and it really fueled my acting because I was really frustrated, but it really fueled the moment. And I think that it always reminds us like you can make the most out of any mistake. You can own it. You can make a challenge. Obviously, it was something that wasn't supposed to happen. It was I handled it and then I got off stage and I was like, oh, no, no, no. But like, it was totally fine. It was totally fine, and they still love the show because these things happen. And so I just think it's helpful. Like we can things will happen, but you can still be great. You can still be great.
I love that. I love that. Cause I'm just imagining that where it's just tilted over.
Yep. Just hanging. And I was just like, okay, well, snatched it off.
I love that. I love that. And to bring it back to, our topic, you do stutter. It is you may trip or that's happened in interviews and stuff like that, and own it. Like you did. You
Yeah.
owned it. There are times where I've stumbled in interviews and I'm like, you know what? Let me start over because I'm nervous. And I feel like that's more respectable than you just trying to trip over yourself or take yourself too serious. My mother always used to say, don't take yourself so serious. And I didn't get that until, I grew older, like, oh yeah, because you're human and you're gonna make mistakes. So own it. I love that. I love that. So how can people find you? How can people connect with you?
Oh, well, I'm on LinkedIn at Rhonda Khan. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My website is simplyspeechsolutions.com. If you look me up, usually that's where you find me. And then if you are looking for a speaker for an event, I also have a speaking website, rhondakhan.com. But if you look me up, you'll find all those kinds of things.
I love that. Any tidbits you want to leave for the listeners before we end?
You are enough as you are. You don't have to imitate or pretend. Really, really work on being the best version of you that you can, and you will be unstoppable. Always.
I love that. I love that. And I just want to thank you again, Rhonda, for taking time out your busy schedule to give us some nuggets and give those that are struggling with the interview and just like because I know a lot of people get anxiety with that. So I'm loving the fact that you gave our listeners some nuggets, and hopefully you go into that interview and you own it just as you are, just as you are. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to be kind to yourself and own your difference. own it. You are who you are and embrace that. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
All right. That was